So this evening we're going to be talking about clattering brake pads. Some of you may or may not have ever heard of such a thing, but for those of us that have, and for those of us who may be a little confused onto what's going on in the front end of your vehicle, well, I'm going to explain to you something. You're driving down some uneven terrain. Maybe it's a gravel road, you're doing maybe 25, 30 miles an hour, and all you hear is this clack, 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 clack. Okay? It'll last for maybe 2 to 3 seconds up until you hit your next bump or pothole, and then you'll hear it again. You might hear it faintly, you might hear it very loudly. It may be very loud, it depends on the pothole. Usually it starts off as a very light clattering sound, and after a while it progresses into something that is much more noticeable. You're driving down a public street and you're just about to approach the traffic light. Maybe the light was just green and you went through it, and there's a whole bunch of people that are looking at you because there's a very audible sound coming from the front end of your car, and a lot of people are kind of looking at you like, hey buddy, better take your car to a garage. Well, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to get into your car, and there's a little test a little procedure that you can try out to see if this is in fact your brake pads that are clattering. There are bushings inside your caliper, and if these little bushings are wore out, your caliper, your brake pads are going to be rattling against the caliper bolts. But I'll show you this procedure first before we get to discuss it any further. First, what you're going to want to do is get into your car, and you're going to want to roll down all windows. Very straightforward. Okay, for some of us, we may have a summer cruiser, or we may have a daily driver. You know, it's a nice sunny day, it's 30 degrees above zero, you're out in your shorts and t-shirt, and you're ready to go to the lake to go eyeball some ladies at the beach, am I right? Typical, you know, hey, Saturday afternoon that most Americans and Canadians do on a weekly basis. But if you're driving your favorite car and you're getting just a little too annoyed about the clattering sounds in the front end of your car, and you think maybe it's a ball joint at fault, or you're just not quite sure, there is a procedure that you can follow. When you are driving down a gravel road, or a road that is roughly paved maybe 35 years ago when there was actually, or maybe, hey, maybe this road was paved when there was actually a horse and wagon, who knows. And you're driving down this road, all you have to do is apply very light pressure to your brake pedal while keeping your right foot on the accelerator and drive down this road. Keep in mind, do not overheat your brake linings while doing this, okay? Do it for a very, very short period of time. Do it for maybe 5 seconds, that's it, no more, no less, and very, very light on the brakes. You don't want to overheat your brake linings doing this. If the clattering stops, then you know your brake pads are in fact rattling against the caliper bolt and you need service to your brakes. If it doesn't, if the clattering sound still persists, even with light pressure on the brake pedal, then you know there's something else at fault. So what I'm going to do here now is I'm going to start my car, I'm going to go out and take it out on the road, and I'm going to show you guys what kind of clattering sounds you may hear. Okay, like I say, very light pressure on the brake pedal while keeping your right foot on the accelerator. Don't drive 3 miles with your left foot on the brakes. You're going to overheat your brake linings doing this, and you're going to cause yourself a world of problems. Like I say, right? Very annoying. It can draw a lot of attention to yourself, and not the attention that you want to see either. So let's take the car into the garage and let's fix this little problem. Okay, first things first, before you raise the vehicle, you're going to want to loosen off the wheel nuts. Then what you're going to want to do is jack the vehicle and support it securely on jack stands. I already went ahead and did all that. What I've also done is went ahead and loosened off the caliper bolts. This here is an Allen wrench. Okay, a lot of these vehicles of the 80s used an Allen wrench like this one here in order to remove the caliper bolts. I'm going to go ahead and remove one of them, so just in case if there was any of you guys that never ever seen one before. Okay, this is what the caliper bolt looks like. Excuse me. Notice that it is a Allen type wrench that is required in order to remove it. It is an Allen key style. Okay, an Allen key style hex head on this bolt. Alright, so that is what's required. Some of them require Torx, but with these vehicles it was actually an Allen key that was required. There's the other one. Okay, very straightforward. They're both the same, so don't worry about, you know, mixing these up. They're both the same length, they're both the same style. Okay, there's nothing different about those at all. Okay, so with those removed, what I'm going to do is turn on this additional light. See if that helps with visibility here. This garage bay is pretty dimly lit right here. Now I'm going to go ahead and remove the caliper from the rotor. Okay. These. Okay. Want to point out something very quickly. Before you put the caliper back on, too, it's always a good idea to use some high temperature grease on the caliper ears right here where they sit. So just keep that in mind too. If you have some handy, you know, make sure you have some handy. If not, before you start dismantling the car, go get some high temperature grease. New brake pads. Okay, lads and lassies. You notice the problem here? This brake pad is brand new, by the way. I put these on last year. I believe I made a video on it. They didn't need to be replaced, but usually I do just replace random parts just to make videos about it. Notice here that, hey, wait a second. Isn't there supposed to be a clip over top of this? Yes, you're exactly right. Many brake pad companies, okay, will not come with new clips. So what you're going to have to do is, if you remove your old brake pads and you notice, hey, there's no clip here, this is where your rattling is coming from. Essentially, not all of it, but it will cause brake pads to chatter. Now, if there is a clip, what you're going to want to do is remove that clip and take it off and put it to your new brake pad. But if your new brake pads have new clips, don't worry about it. I'll show you the clips in just a second here. What I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to remove these. A lot of grass and crud and corruption. This car hasn't moved very far. I only put about 100 kilometers on it last year, so like I say, I don't drive it far. So like I say, there's your outboard pad. Like I say, these pads are brand new. They're never used. Okay. So now in along here we have a sleeve. Okay, this is where our caliper bolt slides through. Okay, and if we take a look here, if we put our brake pad back in, oh, that's the wrong pad first of all, that's our outboard pad. Okay, now if we put our old pad back in here, we slide this through here, we can kind of take note that the pad actually sort of rests on the caliper bolt itself right here. See, the bolt is right here. See, this is the part of the brake pad here. It sits on the very edge of the caliper. If the clips are non-existent on the back of the pad, what's going to do is it's going to chatter against the bolt of the caliper and the caliper itself. And it's going to cause a very, very awful sound. Usually what will remedy this situation is if you apply the brake pad slightly going over rough terrain. What this will do is it will push the two brake pads together against the rotor. Kind of a no-brainer, right? But with that added pressure, what it'll do is it'll keep the pads from chattering. It'll have everything nice and tight against the caliper. It won't have any room to be moving around, banging up against the caliper and the caliper bolt itself. But until you let off the brakes and the brake pads let off against the rotor, then if you're going over rough terrain or over potholes or catch basins or over your neighbor, well then it's going to be back to clack, 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 clack. Shouldn't be doing that either. Makes dust. Anyway, I've been a smoker for 10 years anyway. I don't imagine that'll kill me. It'll be something else. So anyway, I'm going to show you how to change these. Very straightforward. These bushings are easy to pull out. All you need is a pair of pliers and they'll pull right out of there. Okay, so when you get your brake pads and you don't have what you need, what you can go out and do is buy yourself a kit which includes brand new sleeves and bushings. The bushings are essentially just O-rings. You'll notice that some of these bushings are wider. Okay, so like say for example, this one here will obviously go on this side, and the smaller one will obviously go in here. Okay, so there's no room for error. It's very straightforward. So what you'll get in the kit is these clips. Okay, usually when you buy brake pads, they come with these already on here. Alright, so unfortunately, this kit did not come with them. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to line up my brake pad. Okay, so my brake pad goes in like that. So obviously my clip has to go in like this, so it just hooks on over top. Then what you got to do is take a pair of pliers, just grasp the clip, give it a little tug there until it's underneath the lip of the brake pad, and then just give it a little push. There you go, you have it in there. So there you go, you have your clip now attached to your brake pad. Go ahead and shove your brake pad inside the caliper, slide it inside the piston, and there you go. See, there you have it. Like I say, a lot of these brake pads do not come with them, and this is part of your problem. This is a lot of people figure, oh, okay, they don't come with new clips, maybe you don't need them anymore. Well, this is exactly the problem. Is that, you know, maybe somebody will buy a car and all of a sudden, you know, okay, why is there so much clattering on the front end? And then all of a sudden the brakes are worn out, so they decide to do a brake job, and they figure, well, you know what, maybe the brakes were so badly worn out. It is the brakes that is the problem. It is the brake pads that are doing it, but a lot of people think, okay, well, there's no new clips with these on these brake pads, so maybe they're not needed. They are needed. They're just sold in a different kit. Some brake pads do have them, some don't. So moving on, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to grasp this bushing. Okay, they do just slide out. Give it a push from the other side. Do what you got to do. Okay, like I say, like you're changing the bushings anyway, so don't worry about wearing anything out, harming anything. There's nothing to harm under there. Okay. Give it a little push with your pliers. It's actually easier to push sometimes anyway. And kind of give it a twist with your finger, so to speak. So okay. So your bushing, your sleeve is very simple. That's all it is. That's all your sleeve is. The kit does come with new sleeves, so like I say, there's no sense keeping the old sleeves. You might as well replace them because the kit does come with new ones. But like I say, it's the bushings inside that are the main point. They should be replaced. It's not so much the sleeves. The sleeves will never wear out on you. It's just the fact of the matter is that the bushings is at fault. So all you need to do is just grab it, reach in there with your pliers. Okay, don't worry about trying to save it, manhandle it as much as you want, rip it out of there, curse at it like it was your ex-wife, it does not matter. Alright, and there you go, see, pull her out. This one actually isn't bad. The one on the other side was totally weather beaten real bad, so, but like I say, that's what the old one looks like, the old bushing. So, I'm going to go ahead and take it from my new kit now. Alright, give it a little blow, just clean it out. And I'm very easily just going to shove my new one in there, just like that. I know it's difficult to see with this camera, but okay, like no screwdrivers required or anything, just go ahead and shove it in there. And make sure it's in the groove. I got to start it from this side, so you won't be able to see it on the camera, but yeah, I think you'll get the general idea. Okay, so when you get the bigger bushing in, nice and tucked in there, go ahead and remove the smaller one. Same deal, just Take your pliers. Don't worry about trying to save it, just manhandle it right out of there. See, there it is. That one's not too bad neither, but like I say, yours might be totally done or they might not even be existent, so replace them. Okay, so when it comes to the new sleeve, same diff. Okay? Just comes out the same way it went in. It might take a little bit of wiggle room, it might take a little bit of cursing and swearing, but it will go in there. So just take your time with it, be patient with it, and it will go in there. Might need a few love taps too with either your pair of pliers or something. Don't hit it tremendously, but like I say, you know, just give it a few taps with your pliers. You know, don't totally destroy it or anything, but you know what I'm saying. Don't take a 5-pound mallet or anything like that either to it. Eventually it'll go in there on its own. And do the same to the other side. Okay, with our last sleeve to be installed, I neglected to mention that some kits also come with some grease as well. If there is, just apply a little slight film. It'll make the installation of the sleeve a little easier on you. You're not, you know, bashing against the O-ring. So like I say, just like that, sometimes you'll be able to just get lucky and you'll have it slide right in there with your thumb. If it does need a little tap, you know, give it a little tap with your hammer. Don't hit it too hard or anything like that. Just go gentle with it. And this is what it looks like once you get your sleeves in. Nothing to it. Next, you take your brake pads, take your inbound brake pad, slide them in, take your outboard brake pad, and we'll go ahead and attach it to our rotor. Remember, if you have some high temperature grease, remember to apply some to the caliper ears that I showed earlier. And with our caliper installed, now I'm going to mention very quickly here that you are going to notice when you put your bolts in, you're going to notice that it's going to be a little bit stiffer when you're coming to tighten them down. So keep that in mind. It's just you're fighting with your new bushings, so to speak. So just bear that in mind. Next, restow your tire and torque it down to the correct specifications for your vehicle. And after roughly 75 miles of driving, retorque them again, 100 kilometers. And if necessary, retorque them. Okay, that wheel nut is obviously bit the dust. We won't be putting that back on there. It's stripped. Okay, so now's the time we're going to take the car out for a test drive here and make sure that our clattering brake pads are no longer clattering, which they won't be. This road was just recently paved not too long ago, so it's not really the best spot to try it. But there is a catch basin right out front, and every spring it is one doozy of a pothole to hit. So I'm going to not only wear in my freshly new suspension that I put in this car a few years ago, which only has about 80 clicks on the new suspension, but I'm going to test out the brake pads, make sure that they're not going to be clattering. It's quite a doozy. It's right there. Like it's bad. So we're going to go ahead and test it out.